Hello and welcome back. Season 3, Episode 3, Ecuador Insider Podcast. Jesse Bayer, Ryan Pemberton. As you can see, I'm still on the coast. Ryan, of course, is in Vilcabamba. Looks like you got a little bit of a gray day there today. I am lucky enough to have a little bit of sunshine today. This is a great timing here. We were about to make sort of an update. Was it yesterday or the day before? Talking about some changes they've done to travel policy. And that's what this show is going to be about. What does it take to get in and out of Ecuador? We were going to make a pod a day or two ago. And then just last night, news came across, AP Bulletin, right, came across. And we found out that Ecuador has now lifted the vax travel requirement, the vaccine certificate travel requirement. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to read that stuff to you. Do you have anything you want to say before I do that?
Sure. The sun is coming out in Vilcabamba, by the way. It was just raining overnight, so it's taken an extra minute here to clear off. But yeah, it was interesting. It was 2 days ago on Wednesday that the government had made an issue statement from the COE saying that you needed you needed your vaccine card to enter Ecuador, or wait, what was it? I'm getting all confused now. No, they've confused us. It was back-to-back days. So what was it?
Yeah, the first one was that they dropped the testing requirement. So they were
okay. You don't have to have both. You didn't have to have both, but you still had to have the vaccine card.
Yeah, exactly. So we were going to do an update saying, hey, the testing requirement has been dropped. And then they had signaled that they are also going to look at the vax requirement as well. And then 24 hours later, they dropped that. So
and then 24 hours. And yeah, go ahead, Jesse. You can pull that up there. It's basically a one or the other type of thing. So you could either have the vaccine card and enter, or you would need a negative COVID test, which is interesting since the day before they dropped the negative COVID test thing, but brought it back for those who are unvaccinated. So
yeah, and that's the bottom line. It's an either or. And for people, today is Friday, February 11th. So this just came out yesterday on the 10th, this information, and today's the 11th that we're recording the show. Sorry, go right ahead.
Sure. No, I mean, I was just waiting for you to pull that up.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here and hop over to this announcement. So this is off of the government's tourism website, the Ministerio de Turismo. And this is an automatic translate that they have into English. Obviously, our channel is an English-speaking channel, and we'll just go ahead and read through this. So again, this came out, well, actually, this is, let's see. Yeah, so the notice came out yesterday, Thursday, February 10th. And then it takes effect today, February 11th, today, Friday, February 11th. So out of Quito, the National Emergency Operations Committee, COE, ordered the Ministry of Health to update the guidelines for entering continental and insular Ecuador, which come into force Friday, February 11th at 12:01 a.m., it looks like. Remaining as follows, that's a bad translation, entrance to continental Ecuador. So all travelers over 3 years of age must present the vaccination certificate with a QR code, and this is where they dropped it, or valid vaccination card against COVID-19 with at least 14 days of validity after completing the scheme, or negative test result of the RT qualitative test, PCR in real time, performed up to 72 hours prior to shipment to Ecuador. Shipment, of course, means travel in this case, but the PCR test is what they're referring to there. Passengers under 3 years old will not present these requirements, or these are not required to do that. In addition, let's see, does any of that matter at all?
I don't think any of the rest of it matters, but I thought it was 5, but now they changed it to 3, which that's interesting. But yes, so there it is. I mean, this is really the good news that everybody's been waiting for. That was not wanting to vaccinate themselves or their families, but come to Ecuador. So, a lot of you guys have reached out to us looking to see if we know of anything, if these mandates were going to be lifted anytime soon. And again, we were going to make a video just saying like, hey, they're saying in the next, weeks, maybe they'll lift the vaccine mandate. And then just overnight they did, which is kind of strange. But ultimately, this is how Ecuador has, done things here. They say one thing and the very next day it's something different. So I don't know what that's about, or why, you would think that their team could talk about how they're going to proceed and not change their mind 24 hours later. So That's odd, but
yeah, it's funny.
Is what it is.
One of the pieces of advice, I've always given people over the years when they're moving to Ecuador is the ability to roll with the punches. Things here change quickly. And enforcement is always not great. That they're not good necessarily always at enforcement, and things change quickly, and they often do something really strong and then immediately roll it back, or roll it back some short period of time later. So this is just kind of another example of that, I think, really, where they sort of came out with this very strong requirement. You would remember better than I would how long ago that was, a month or two ago, relatively recently. Is that semi-accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then here we are a month or two later, and it's gone. So, this is somewhat typical, I think, in Latin America, probably in general, but certainly in Ecuador. And it's actually one of the things I like about the country, because things tend to get worked out. And this is just sort of another example of that. And obviously, as Ryan said, for people who want to travel here unencumbered by potential, medical restrictions, you are now able to do that. And, I know that's a lot of good news. I know it's good news for a lot of people watching this. We've gotten a lot of people, either canceling trips or reaching out and saying, gosh, keep me updated. Let me know when this changes, so on and so forth. So we definitely wanted to keep you guys abreast of the situation and, give you that update as soon as it came out.
Couple more things. The country is now 100% open. So they kind of staggered it over the last few weeks, from up to 50%. I think on our last pod, we had talked about how they went to 50% on large gatherings, and now it's 100%. And they're talking about in the coming weeks, if the cases are to continue to decrease, then they would lift the outdoor mask mandate. So then we'll be able to legally, that's the way you would put it, walk around without masks in public outdoor spaces. I'm thinking that they'll keep the indoor mask mandate for, I don't know, some time until the COVID variant goes away.
And I'm going to talk now a little bit probably outside of my actual knowledge, so take this with a grain of salt. But my understanding even now, and I think they're going to keep this, is they're still going to have these sort of color-coded categories where each canton can sort of dictate what code they're in based on, I don't know, cases or hospitalizations or whatever criteria they use. But what they've done is they've now, for each code, they've lifted the level of restriction a great deal as well. So it really, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Ryan, but from my perspective, there really hasn't been any restrictions to speak of that are bothersome within the country for a long time. Really going back to when they kind of lifted the initial kind of, we had to sort of clamp down at the beginning, and then they lifted that. Since then, life has been essentially normal. Yes, most people wear masks. Lots of people also, many people also don't. That's been a more or less a personal choice thing. There's absolutely been restrictions to get into certain places, and that's probably been the only and most sort of onerous thing where you're having to wear a mask in certain places, or you're having to show paperwork in certain places. But that's really been it as far as anything that you feel. That continues to lessen, as Ryan has mentioned. But I think even the mask mandate, and again, I could be wrong about this, but my understanding on the mask mandate is it's not a national law even now. It's just part of the color coding, I think, depending on which canton you're in. So I could be right or wrong about that. But the bottom line is that life really has been fairly normal here for quite some time. And obviously they've signaled now that whatever remnants of that are remaining are on their way out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think every canton is going to be able to make their own decisions on even if they would want to enforce vaccine cards. We saw the mayor of Guayaquil saying, oh, well, we're going to continue to enforce that. So, yeah, a little bit more radical there in the Guayaquil area. But here, Loja province, it's been a little bit more relaxed, particularly in Vilcabamba for sure. So, yeah, I mean, I think that continues here. I'd like to think that we, continue in this direction regardless. And definitely not a law, though. I don't think it ever was a law, but it's what Ecuador
emergency
officials,
measure or something. Yeah.
And they say you have to wear a mask, then they're wearing a mask. That's it. So if you say now you don't have to wear a mask outside, we'll see if anybody takes their mask off outside. Maybe some of them will. My guess is that most of them will keep the mask on because they are very afraid. So, and I mean, rightfully so. A lot of what news talks about is very frightening. If all you watch is maybe a single source of news, I mean, so there it is. And
just on that real quick, there seems to be a divide. And Ryan, I know you're short on time, so when you got to go, just we can hard cut. But there seems to be a divide between rural and urban that's pretty significant. Where in the area that we live in, the Vilcabamba, Malacatos, Loja, that region, the towns, and this is true everywhere in the country, but really from what I've seen, the towns, nobody really cares at all, right? And some people are wearing masks and some people aren't, and nobody's checking anything and nobody cares. And that's true where I am here as well on the coast, right? The towns, same thing. As soon as you go into the city, Loja, right, in our region, in this region, it's Manta where I am right now. You go into the city, different ballgame. People care. People are worried about it. The percentage of mask wearers goes up to nearly 100. And it's sort of a different vibe. It's a different feeling. The rural areas just doesn't seem to be that way at all. So that's kind of an interesting observation over the course of this as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there'll be a breath of fresh air for the Lojanos to be able to take off those masks outside.
Unintended.
Feel like they're really that their counterparts, the people that, they want to be respected, that they can now take off their mask and that it's, acceptable by everybody else. Because if it's not acceptable, then all of a sudden you start to lose respect with your peers. And if you're in professional business in Loja, you're not going to be taken seriously unless you're wearing a mask. So, I mean, it's kind of good for them. Like for me, I think if cases are going down, then what's the risk? Like, let's take them off outside. To me, that makes logical sense. I don't care what side of the spectrum you fall on with wearing a mask. So, yeah.
And I just want to give a little color here too to sort of the cultural stuff, because I mean, that's a great point that you make, and without getting too far on a tangent there, but this is a culture where people sort of make decisions uniformly, right? It's not a culture that has 75 different factions and beliefs, and it's a very sort of monoculture place where people tend to have similar beliefs and preferences. But Ryan and I are certainly not advocating this. Our company is certainly not advocating this, but we are also very aware, we'll say, of people who did not want to get vaccinated, but have wanted to continue to participate in society and have shown various things over time to get into places. So this has not been a situation, even when it was at its worst, where people actually had to get vaccinated if they wanted to participate in things. There were easy solutions for people to flash a card, flash a this or that or the other thing, and get into wherever. Nobody was checking, nobody was scanning anything. There wasn't any enforcement, again, going back to that, in that level. So again, that will no longer be necessary, but just, an interesting caveat as well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, interesting times. Ecuador is just following suit. you see the other European countries making this direction, and we're just going to follow right along. So hopefully it keeps up and cases continue to, weaken, and we'll be back to normal before we know it. So, all right, guys. Well, like Jesse said, I do have to go. Got another appointment, but if you guys like this video, please consider subscribing to our channel, like this video, and give us a big thumbs up there. And yeah, what else, Jesse? Should we?
That's pretty much all I got. So, I think, again, a lot of people, I think, were waiting for this news. So I know this will be welcome news for a lot of people. Yep. Travel is now, essentially back to normal, minus a PCR test, and no more mandates.
Yeah. So the next step is to follow up with somebody at an airline in the U.S. who's coming to Ecuador to ask them, do we need the vaccine card? Like, will they require it? Because really, if they're the ones requiring it, then it's still required. Because it was all over the news 2 days ago that, you needed either the vaccine card you needed the vaccine card, but you don't need the PCR test, right? So that was all over the news, but nothing, crickets from now that they say now you don't need it. It's not on the news at all.
Oh, really?
So yeah.
I mean, I did see a friend of mine last night, because I had forwarded him the information, or I just let him know that they had dropped the requirement. He checked on the U.S. I don't know if it was CDC or the travel advisory website for the U.S. that has, the country by country travel advisories. They had already updated it for travel to Ecuador from the U.S. They had already updated it with the new information. So I think the airlines have to follow that. I don't think, think they'll do anything different, but,
Yeah, I just found it interesting that it wasn't being promoted by a lot of the news outlets. I mean, what's wrong with promoting that you no longer need a COVID vaccine card to enter Ecuador? That's big news for maybe a small amount of people. They think so. It's not newsworthy. I don't know. So anyhow, it just was interesting to me.
Yeah,
there it is.
There was a 24-hour sort of difference in those two news items. It is interesting. So
yeah, actually, one news. Sorry, I was gonna say one news outlet, which I won't name, came out with something today with the old news. Oh, really? So they actually glossed over and gave the inaccurate news, which was that you still needed a COVID vaccine card, but if you had one, you didn't need the PCR test. They reiterated that instead of proclaiming that the mandate had been lifted. So interesting stuff.
Lifted and not tell anyone, huh?
And they're literally on it all the time. They're like one of the first ones to report all the news that expats would be interested to know. On point, and then just somehow missed it. Weird.
Oh, well, I have an idea of the publication you're talking about, and there's some.
I think we all do.
There's some strange stuff that goes on with them, right back to their founders and so on and so forth. So that's not a huge surprise.
not a huge surprise. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your support, and hope to have a podcast long format out for you here soon. We've got a nice topic in store for you, which is the sales process. How can you purchase real estate in Ecuador if you're a foreign citizen, right? It's easy. We just want to walk you through that process, talk to you a little bit about it, because a lot of you have questions and send emails, and we thought we'd just make a nice video going over all of that. So hope to have that to you soon. And until then, you guys take it nice and easy.